The Storyteller's Daughter by Camille Gossett. Chapter 5. I spent many of those difficult, lost years back then, wondering where I had gone wrong and why my life felt so bleak and desolate. Life hadn't gone according to my plan, if you could even call the wisp of direction I had at that point a plan. Mostly my intentions back then consisted of moving in whatever direction allowed me to avoid my pain, chasing stability, and try to build a life as far away from my family of origin as possible. And if that sounds vague, it's because it was. Life hadn't turned out the way I wanted it to in those times, but I had never mapped out clear measurable goals for what I did want, let alone work toward them with any consistency. That is, not until the year I turned 30. I only knew what I thought I didn't want until that year of awakening. I didn't want the life I'd been born into. I didn't want to live in constant discomfort and uncertainty. I hated that I'd been born different and poor with two dysfunctional, batshit insane parents. I hated being pitied by teachers, by my peers' parents, by my friends. I was aware of how I smelled sometimes, of the days I forgot to shower or brush my teeth, or how visibly unkempt I looked compared to the pristine, pressed, peachy clean, blue blood girls I went to school with. The only way I survived, and I mean the only way, was that I happened to be born with keen intelligence paired with an acute intuition. Knowledge came to me quickly. I was perceptive beyond my years. I never quite knew how to explain it. I just knew things, even when there was no clear way for me to know them. Sometimes I simply just felt them. They were strange feelings, uninvited yet insistent. Once, when I was young, I felt compelled to go to the window at a precise moment. If I allowed it, my legs would move before my mind ever decided to follow. When I reached the glass, I didn't know why I was there. But seconds later, I saw him, a tall man with a balding blonde head, expensive European leather shoes slipping through the shadows of our yard. He moved carefully, as if searching for an exit without being seen or heard. It was immediately clear he wasn't supposed to be there. At the time, I didn't understand what I had witnessed. Years later, when I was 7 or 8, that same feeling returned, sharp and unmistakable in the pit of my stomach. This time, it pulled me toward my mother's bedroom door one quiet spring afternoon, the same bedroom she shared with my father back then. I opened the door just enough to see. I didn't announce myself. I didn't speak, but I recognized the tall frame, the balding blonde head. The truth arranged itself instantly, without explanation. That was when I understood what my body had known all along. I was never normal, though there were long stretches of my life when that fact stayed just beneath the surface, easy enough to ignore if you weren't paying close attention. And then there were moments when it announced itself unmistakably, when something in me knew things that didn't make sense, yet somehow made all the difference. The experience with my mother and the blonde, balding man wasn't the first time that happened, and it wouldn't be the last. It was simply the moment when the consequences of that knowing became impossible to misunderstand. I liked books more than people. I could speak almost any words except the truth. I craved being alive while feeling an empty hollowness inside. I couldn't relate to the frivolous, frolicking ways of those around me, though my circumstances kept me more than grounded in reality. Whatever was different about me didn't make me fragile or unobservant. If anything, it made me hyper aware, tuned in to undercurrents other people seemed not to notice or chose to ignore. I may have been intelligent and capable, but it's difficult to actualize potential when you spend countless nights putting yourself to bed through tears, cleaning up your mother's vomit, and patching holes in thrifted name brand clothes to disguise their age and wear. Those years may not have resulted in traditional success for me, but they didn't dull my intuition either. Instead, they sharpened it. I learned that my ability to focus in on people and places, to feel the answers within them, was my super strength, my special survival skill. I was attractive in those years, and men liked me well enough, but there was something shifty and hard to grasp about both my looks and my peculiar personality. Because of that imperceptible, slippery quality to me, I was never men's first choice. Born with a carrot top shock of red hair, I grew into a young adult with unruly, flaming curls and porcelain pale skin to match. I was small and wiry, though I'll admit I had curves I was deeply grateful for. They were some of the only soft parts of me. I understood even then that life wasn't fair. Still, I believed I could put lipstick on a pig better than most, that I could reshape ugliness into something tolerable, disguise chaos as charm, and will my way towards some version of happy ever after. What I didn't yet understand was that the same instinct that helped me survive back when I was young, the knowing, the adapting, the sensing, would come back to me as my saving grace, while also marking me different in ways I wouldn't fully reckon with until much later. But it all came with a price, as all things do. By my teenage years, work became the thing that kept me afloat. It gave me a measure of stability, a foothold in the world, a way to survive tactically. But survival wasn't the same as access. The work I did was not the kind that opened doors. It was the kind that kept you standing just long enough not to drown. My looks may have granted me entry into certain cultural spaces I would not otherwise have accessed, but staying there required resources I didn't have. Other people arrived at their adult years with some semblance of support, financially, socially, logistically. I arrived exhausted, clocking in and clocking out, calculating every hour, every shift, every obligation, all by myself, as always. I know I would never have married my former husband if I hadn't been so worn out, beaten down, and afraid. Like an animal, my survival instincts had taken over, and I had made a fear based response to seek security in something that had once comforted me. Broderick had also made a fortune in his law practice by the time we married, and that certainly didn't dissuade me from wanting to marry him despite our incompatibility. Speaking of Broderick, my former husband, there is a lot I need to share about who we were when we were married for any of this life I'm explaining to make even a shred of sense. Broderick and I knew each other at 2 points in time. Once when I was 17, and again when we reconnected and married, from the time I was 22 until I was 30. Typically, people fall in love, court one another, align on values and goals, and then marry in hopes of building something together. I'm realistic enough to know it doesn't always follow that model, but that's the general blueprint most people recognize. The key point is that most people fall in love before they get married. Our story didn't work that way. Ours resembled something closer to an arranged marriage. Two people who found each other attractive, carried a backlog of sexual frustration, and needed someone, anyone, to help discharge it. Not once, but twice. Only one of those times did end up in us committing ourselves through the bonds of holy matrimony. And maybe, even more than that, we were two people who needed someone else in the world to mask their secrets and camouflage what they were to the rest of the world. What mattered wasn't who we were to each other, but what we represented to one another. I don't think we were ever interested in knowing one another deeply. We were interested in outcomes and didn't think it would matter that we were missing the true emotional connection. We thought we just had to agree to play our respective roles and that our life together would fall into place neatly. Life became the stage and we were the actors. Broderick needed someone to care for him and about him, someone who could help disguise the uglier truths of his life from the cutthroat, white collar professional world and aspirations he valued so deeply. And I needed someone to protect me, to give me cover, to offer a place where I could hide from the terrors I carried with me. I was exhausted. He was lost. We were, in that way, the perfect pair, both times. I believe that broken people often find one another. Pain recognizes pain, and there is a particular kind of solace in being seen by someone who understands the depths of it. That's how Broderick and I came together. Both the first time we were in each other's lives, and again the second time when we married. When we married, he was grieving the loss of his first wife and his child. I was searching for safety above all else, and maybe, if I was lucky, a shred of meaning in what felt like an abysmally gray and unfair world. In hindsight, I don't know how I ever expected to get that from Broderick, given that I suspect that somewhere inside him he blamed me, at least in part for the loss of his wife and daughter. He would never say it out loud, but I knew it just the same. Broderick's story had always been that he and Sasha were over by the time he came for me, both times. But I was better with details than I let on. My memory always keener than people expect from me. It was easier to hide in plain sight then, and it still is now. Playing dumb, pretending I don't know what is going on. People are less defensive that way, more prone to letting their masks slip, revealing their deepest secrets through minor hints, fleeting expressions, or my favorite, an actual slip of the tongue. And yet, with Broderick, I ignored everything I knew. I buried the intuition that had never once failed me, folded it down beneath the need to feel safe, and chose him anyway. That choice would cost me more than I was prepared to pay.